Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Texas Hill Country Fishing Report with Greg Welander of Upstream on the Fly. Have you thawed out, Greg?
Well, hi, Marvin. I have. I've actually thawed out, and that's a good thing. Here in the Texas Hill Country, we just spent, or in Texas in general, right? We've spent around 8 days below freezing, and it wasn't, like 31 or 30. We're talking single digits into daytime highs of low 20s. And everybody listening here, if you're in Texas, you already know this. We're not going to relive it, of course. But for your folks outside of Texas, it was an interesting run. It's something that we've not experienced for cold weather for as long as we had since 1983. I guess the city of Austin's record showed 144 hours below freezing, which calculates about 6 days. And the last time that was that long was in 1983, and I guess it was 140 hours back in 1983. And I was in Texas. I was in San Antonio in 1983, and we did not have the rolling blackouts. We did not have water shortage issues or any of the things that affected a lot of the Texans last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, the good news is you're on a significant warming trend. I think I looked at your weather and you're in the 80s today, and it's going to cool off a little bit, but it looks like your weather is going to kind of bounce around the 60s and the 70s with some rain for the next week to 10 days. So how long is it going to take for things to kind of normalize from a temperature perspective to kind of get you back on track for a traditional early spring in the Hill Country?
Well, I'm going to talk about, the rivers, right? There was ice on most of our rivers, and tailwaters, of course, do not have ice. And that would be like, say, the Guadalupe River below Canyon Dam. I'm sure there might've been ice, 30, 40 miles downstream. But if the river had, a decent amount of flow and a warmer temperature, because the tailwater is a warmer temperature coming out below the dam, then what happened due to this, this polar vortex we just experienced, the Brazos River in North Texas, the Lampasas in North Central Texas, and the Upper Colorado above Lake Buchanan, the Pedernales River going into Lake Travis, and even the San Gabriel River, they all had ice on it. And, the ice levels, I don't know the thickness, but as we all know, if you have ice on rivers, I'm assuming the water temperature is 32 or below for ice to form. The strong thing is right now, though, is we've had plenty of sunshine. We've hit 70 degrees, this past Sunday, which was, like the second day we came out of the 32 degree, or above. So just like you said a few minutes ago, we were in the 80s today, which is crazy, how fast we rebounded. So not having to deal with this since 1983, how long will it take for the water to warm up? It's really kind of unknown. But I will tell you that shallow water, okay, of course, gets colder quicker, but it also warms up quicker. All the fish, seek out deep water holes, and that, of course, is typically your bigger areas, your deeper pools within your river streams, and hopefully fish didn't perish. Talking about a fish kill, even though this isn't the Hill Country related report, but our Texas Gulf Coast inshore has really taken a bad hit. There's been everything from your mullet, your bait fish, your piggy perch, all the way up to your speckled trout, and even redfish are starting to show up, floating in on the shorelines. So Texas Park and Wildlife will, conduct their surveys over the next few weeks to try to determine to what extent was the fish kill. But from the pictures I've been seeing and from the people that I've been speaking with, it's not good. So Time will tell. It's definitely catch and release down at the Texas coast this year, and they closed the Texas coast from fishing during this cold front, which is a good thing. Not that anybody would even go fishing during that, but barge traffic is another issue. Barges going down intercoastal churn the water, brings the cold water to the bottom and the warm water to the top. And I've seen some of that going on. So we'll see how how our hill country streams have fared. And time will tell. So warm days, what we're looking for is, as far as getting out on the water, you're looking for days when we're in the upper 60s, 70s, and even 80s, because fish become more active when the water temperature's in the 50s into the low 60s, and we're getting into the spawning time of year for both our white bass, of course, and our largemouth and our Guadalupe bass. So that will have been delayed a little bit due to the chill down on the rivers. But as long as we continue to have sunlight and we continue to have, temperatures in the upper 60s, 70s, and 80s, the water's going to warm up a lot quicker. I've been looking at the forecast for nighttime lows, and nighttime lows are looking great. We're not having any freezing overnight lows. We're not having even temperatures in the 30s. It looks like 40s and 50s for overtime or nighttime lows. So that's going to be a positive, and it's going to allow our waters to warm up sooner. And we just got to take it day by day and get out there and do some fishing. Let's talk a little bit about tips and techniques. Fish on the warmest days. Okay, start looking at your weather forecast. Go out on the third or fourth day of a warming trend, because we do, we'll continue to have little cold fronts blowing in, but they're not going to be the polar vortex type of cold fronts. We've got one coming in later this week, and it looks like it's going to knock it back down into the 60s for daytime highs. Some rain. We've got some rain coming in, which is going to be a good thing. I don't know how much rain we're going to be having, though. And we're needing rain. And we're needing rain for our springtime white bass fishing. The rivers need some flow going into the reservoirs for the white bass to want to come running up to go spawn. And typically this time of year, we're normally catching white bass. Okay, we're anywhere from out east of Austin to south of San Antonio is kind of where the white bass runs start sooner than North Austin or the hill country. As you go north and west of Austin. So we've got a full moon coming up towards the end of February, and that's generally a big trigger for a white bass run. However, this year, not having the water temperatures ideal and not having the flow, more importantly, is going to delay the white bass run. And we'll see how the rain we've got coming up the coming weekend, how much rain we're going to have. I don't know. It's not forecasted at a lot. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out the next couple of weeks for the white bass run. And for some of you folks that are interested in the white bass fishing, typically Granger out on the San Gabriel River that actually flows into Granger Lake is one of the area's first white bass runs. That's an area that gets crowded, a lot of folks. And then it kind of plays into the Pedernales River coming out of Lake Travis, and then the Colorado River above Lake Buchanan. Those are kind of the three white bass runs that we see as we get into late February into 1st of March. And the last white bass run, of course, is on the Lana River, which is generally middle March to end of March. They're coming out of Lake LBJ up the Lana River. So hopefully we're going to get some rain to make all that kick off. But we got to get some warmer temperatures definitely in the rivers. All those fish have been sitting dormant for the last week, and they're ready to eat. So they're definitely, largemouth and Guadalupes. They're actually the females have eggs. Okay, so they're getting ready for the spawn, and they're needing sunlight, and they're wanting to grab some warmth. And for us fly fishermen, those fish will be in the lower or the upper water column, so it'll be a little bit easier to target the gluds and the largemouth as we start to warm up coming into March.
Yeah, and I guess the good news is, the rainfall, given where you've been, is actually probably going to help warm the water up a little bit too.
It will. It definitely will. So sunlight, a little bit of rain, and overnight lows aren't that bad, and we're definitely having some high daytime highs. I think here it's midweek, and we're already hitting 80s, and we've had several days running in the 70s. So that's definitely going to help. Something else to think about out there is your big lakes, your reservoirs. That's going to take longer to warm up than, say, your smaller, shallower streams. Okay, those will warm up quicker. So keep that in mind. And another thing you want to keep in mind is fish northern shorelines. Okay, on some of your bigger waterways. If you are fishing lakes, it's always advisable to fish your north shores, because the north shores are protected from the north wind. Same thing on the rivers, look for fish your north shorelines on rivers, and look for cut banks. Cut banks are a clue that your water is going to be deeper. So that's going to be areas where your fish had hung out for the last week. Okay. They got out of the shallows and got into those deeper pools, and cut banks are definitely a giveaway on areas that will hold the fish as the water's starting to warm up.
Got to do tips and techniques.
Yeah, we do. Let's talk about some tips and techniques, maybe a little more in detail. So, sinking lines, definitely come into play, not only for white bass fishing, but to even start working some crawfish patterns, because the fish metabolism is going to be slower, okay, and they're not going to be as aggressive. They're not going to be chasing down your flies on a fast strip. So think about low and slow. Okay, and use finesse patterns like a crawfish pattern, for example, so that you can crawl it slowly along the bottom, and you want to be using bigger flies, because these fish are looking for protein, and they've got to expel some energy to chase down something, so they're going to want to chase something of size more so than something extremely small. Using a sink tip line to get that fly down, and using a shore leader, 3 to 5 feet on your sinking lines. And we already kind of talked about the north shores. Okay, another thing to look for is darker bottoms. Okay, dark bottoms, rocky shorelines, and rocky bottoms, because darker bottoms absorb sunlight, and rocks absorb sunlight. So those will be your areas that will start to warm sooner than other areas of the water. The white bass run, same thing, sinking lines. And, typically, it's hard to find leaders that are, 3 to 5 feet long. They're very easy to make. A lot of times I'll just do, 3 foot of fluorocarbon, and kind of stay around. If I'm doing white bass, I try to go with that 8 pound to 10 pound, which is typically a 2x size 3 foot fluorocarbon. So fluorocarbon will sink faster than a nylon mono type of leader. But let's talk about flies, okay? I'm kind of concentrating on white bass, okay? I'm kind of eager to start to find some white bass. And, with the power outages that Texas had experienced last week, I'm sure a lot of you had the want to sit and tie some flies. But you might have sat around the house and electricity was out. You might have had gloves on, and it wasn't an easy thing to sit and try to tie flies. You were kind of more, we were all in survival mode, so now that electricity is starting to come back in, sit down and let's tie some white bass flies. A cypret minnow is a Texas pattern. It's named after Charlie Cypret, who's from Texas. I like to tie those on a Camco hook, a 52-62 hook, in a size 8 or size 6. And I prefer them to be in white. Gray's my second choice. And then I also have some chartreuse cypret minnows. And by the way, this imitates a river minnow. So it's not just a white bass pattern. It's a pattern that'll take both largemouth and Guadalupe bass. And then the Clouser minnow. Okay. I'll generally tie 2 types of Clouser minnows. So for my clearer and shallower streams, okay, kind of like the St. Gabriel or the Pedernales, I'll go with a Tiemco 52-62, and I'll tie that on a size 8, and I'm using an extra small lead dumbbell eye, and my color combos are typically chartreuse over white, olive over white, gray over white, and then if I've got low light conditions, say cloudy skies or even off-colored water due to maybe a good rainfall, I'll switch to black over purple. And on those smaller Clousers, I'm using EP fiber versus bucktail. But then on my larger Clousers, okay, I'll tie them on, one of my favorite hooks is the Gamakatsu SL11 3H. That's also similar to Tiemco 811S. There's a lot of hooks, manufacturers and hooks today, but those are just a couple that I've got in my tying box. And I'll tie those in a size 6. And I'll be using a small lead dumbbell eye, and I'll be using bucktail for those flies. So same color pattern that I just went over with the smaller Clousers, and I'll have those as well. And those are going to be for my streams that are going to be maybe a little deeper, a little bigger waterways, say like the Colorado Bend area, which is above like Buchanan. I like to use those size 6 Clousers versus the little micro Clousers. But we kind of talked about the sink tip lines. That's imperative for white bass fishing and keeping your leaders short. Don't worry about trying to find a leader. Just make your own. Just take a 3-foot piece of 10-pound fluorocarbon, which would be like 2X in size, and put a perfection loop on the end of it and loop it onto your sink tip, and you'll be good to go. But Marvin, that's it. Us Texans down here are definitely looking forward to spring this year.
Well, Greg, before I let you hop and grab your favorite adult beverage, why don't you let folks know where they can find you so they can book you and fish with you as things warm up?
Well, you can catch me on my website, upstreamonthefly.com, and social media, both Instagram and Facebook, under Upstream on the Fly.
Yeah, well, there you go. And folks, I know it's been cold, but it's going to warm up. It may take a little bit longer than you're used to, but you owe it to yourself to get out there and catch a few. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Greg.
Tight lines, Marvin.